Hi, today we'll start chapter number 17 of module 5, that is system protection. So these are the contents of this chapter, and let us start with the protection. So we know that whatever the modern computer systems we use today, so all are multitasking and multi-processing system. Most of the time the files and the resources will be shared among the number of devices as well as the number of processes inside a system. So that's why protection plays a very important role here. So in general, the protection refers to a mechanism for controlling the access of programs, processes or users to the resources defined by a computer system. Means whatever the resources of the computer system that are shared among the different programs, processes and the users. So to control this, whatever the mechanism that is required, so that is referred as a protection. So what are the goals of a protection? So whenever we implement a protection, what should be the goals? So here I have listed out some, like the modern protection concepts evolved to increase the reliability of any complex system that uses these shared resources. So that's what we discussed. Whenever we share the resources, so we should have a protection mechanism in order to control the access of those. So that's why here the modern protection concepts evolved to increase the reliability of any complex system that uses the shared resources. So the first goal is to increase the reliability. Reliability means it should be up and working at all the time, and it should not harm the normal working of the computer system. The second one is to prevent mischievous intentional violation of access restriction by user. Means when we have the shared resources, so there will be something called the access permissions. Means this is going to define whether a particular permission is available to the user or not on the corresponding resource. So here the second goal is we should have some mechanisms to prevent the mischievous or the intentional violation of the access restrictions by the user. The third goal is we need to ensure that each active program component of the system uses system resources only as per the stated policies. So the system will be having some policies stated, which is again a modified document of the access rights. So all the access rights are documented in a particular document. It can be called as a system policy. So we should have a mechanism to ensure that whatever the actual program components are there in the system, so all will use the system resources as per the policies. There should not be any violation. And the last goal is the role of the protection must be to provide mechanism for enforcement of the resource usage policies. So that is whatever the system policies that are defined by the system, whatever we saw the third goal. So we should have uh, the mechanisms for enforcement of those usage policies. So these are the goals of a protection. So next we'll see the principles of protection. So what are the principles that are to be followed by the protection? So here again we have something called the guiding principle for this, and this principle is widely known as the principle of least privilege. So let us see what is this principle of least privilege. The programs, users and systems should be given just enough privileges to perform their tasks. Means the principle of least privilege means the programs, users and systems. So these three are using the corresponding resources, or they are performing the task. So for this, whatever the essential rights are there, essential privileges are there, only those should be given. there should not be any extra or additional privileges given. So that is the meaning of this principle of least privilege. So that is what here it is. Programs, users and systems should be given just enough privileges to perform their tasks. An operating system following this principle implements its features, programs, system calls and data structures so that failure or compromise of a component does the minimal damage. Means here we saw that the principle of least privileges with respect to the privileges that are given to the corresponding users or the programs to access a particular resource or to perform some task. So in the same way, the operating system which follows this principle of least privilege should implement its features, programs and system calls and data structures so that whenever a failure occurs or whenever a compromise of the component happens, so it will not incur the large amount of damage. The damage should be minimum. The next one is some systems implement the role based access control. Popularly it is known as RBAC. To provide this functionality, minimum damage to be done. Means here usually on Unix operating system this concept is used, that is role based access control. So there will be the different roles and corresponding to those roles the access rights or access privileges will be given. So whenever a user is going to perform some task, so his access rights will be checked, and to check that access right it should check the role of that particular user. So all these things can be considered while implementing the principles of the protection. So next we'll see the domain and the domain structure. So we know that whenever you are working on a particular computer system, the system will be having the collection of processes and the objects. The objects may be the hardware objects and the software objects. So that's why combinedly the collection of objects and processes, we can consider these combinedly as into a particular domain. So here we are discussing about the access rights. So how to specify these access rights? So that's why again here one way is through this particular corresponding domain or the domain structure. So here by this the particular access right can be written in this way, that is object name comma rights set. So here the object name indicates a particular object. It may be a user, it may be a system, it may be a process and so on. And the right set indicates the access right the corresponding object is having. So that's what here, where right set is a subset of all valid operations that can be performed on the object. It is access rights that can be performed on the object. Means here this indicates these are the operations that can be performed on the corresponding object. So as we saw, domain is nothing but the set of access rights. So here we have some examples. So here we have a domain D1, so which is having the 3 access rights. The first one is on object O3. The operations are read and write. On object O1, the operations are read and write. On option O2, the operation is only execute. Means whatever the users or the processes that are the members of this domain D1, so they should be having the corresponding access rights on these 3 objects, that is O1, O2 and O3. Means let us consider we have a object, we have a user 1, so as a member of this domain D1. So here that user can perform read and write operations on object O1. He can perform only execute operation on object O2. He can perform only read and write operations on object O3. Apart from this, any other operation is not allowed to be performed by that user on the corresponding objects O1, O2 and O3. So this is how you can specify the domain. So in addition to this, we have one more example, like we have the intersection of the domains here, that is the access rights here. That is, we have the 2 domains, that is D2 and D3. The D2 is having the 2 access rights, that is O2 right operation, and on O4 we have print operation. And here D3 is having 3 access rights: O4 print operation, O1 execute operation, O3 read operation. So here clearly you can observe here there is one object O4 and the access right print, which is available to the users that are present in D2 as well as present in D3. So that's why it is shown as an intersection here. So that's what here. Let me go to the previous slide. Okay. So that's what here. A domain can be realized again in the variety of ways. So each user may be a domain, a process may be a domain, and a procedure may be a domain. So again at different levels we have the different things, like if you consider the first one, that is each user may be a domain. So in this case the set of objects that can be accessed depends on the identity of the user. So that's what it is. The user may be a domain. The second one is a processor may be a domain. So instead of user we have a process here. It is in this case a set of objects that can be accessed depends on the identity of the process. Similarly, each procedure may be a domain. So again in this case the set of objects that can be accessed corresponds to the local variables defined within the procedure. Okay, means here again it depends on, so on which aspect we have the domain. If we have a user as a domain, so in this case the set of objects that are accessed depends on the identity of the user. If the process is a domain, so all the set of objects that are accessed depends on the identity of the process. Whereas if the procedure is a domain, the set of objects that are accessed depends on the local variables that are defined by the procedure. So in this way the domain structure will be there. So next we'll see the domain implementation in Unix. So in Unix to implement this domain, that is the concept of access right, is very clear. So here the system consists of the two domains, that is the user domain and the super user domain. It's not supervisor, it is super user. So user means it is the normal user, super user means the owner. So here usually in Unix this special access rights will be there for the user and for the super user, and usually super user will be having the highest privilege, means almost all the high level activities will be performed by only the super user and these are not available for the normal user. So again here domain will be the collection of the user IDs, means every user will be having his user ID, and based on his user ID his role will be decided whether he falls under the domain user user domain, or whether he falls under the super user domain. So that's why the user ID plays very important role here. And here the domain switch is accomplished via a particular file system. So again there are the set of APIs or system calls like chmod, chown and so on, to change the ownership and to change the particular domain from one domain to the another domain and so on. So in general you just try to remember these things, like each file has an associated with a domain bit, like the set UID bit, means here particular bit is there with respect to the file attributes, and here based on the value of this set UID bit the corresponding decision is taken. Like consider an example, like when file is executed and the set UID is equal to 1, means it is on, then the user ID is set to the owner of the file being executed. When execution completes, the user ID is reset. Means here if the set UID is equal to 1, means the corresponding user will be temporarily given the ownership permission, and whenever he completes the task it will be reset, means again the set UID will be made equal to off, means again he will become the normal user. So in this way the concept of domain can be implemented on the Unix operating system.